once Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Braditchev. He lived about 250 years ago. This is the time of the Alter Rebbe. He was a very holy, very great person, a tremendously kind person, and he cared about everyone. He saw spiritually that the Jewish people were in a bad shape. And so let's start the story a little bit differently. He was Rosh Hashanah. This is part of the story, but I just sort of, let's start it in a little bit different way. It was the day before, the few hours before Rosh Hashanah, 5 hours before Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah starts in the nighttime, right, when the sun sets. So it was a few hours before. He asked one of his helpers, one of his assistants, his secretaries, come with me. We're walking through the streets. So they walked through the streets of the city of Braditchev. Finally, he stopped in front of one door, knocked on the door. Why am I doing this? I'm making the same mistake again. Okay, I started from the middle. Here's the beginning of the story. Rabbi and the Levi Yitzchak Braditchev, on the day of Rosh Hashanah, he stood and he sounded the shofar. But before he sounded the shofar, he had a little bag, took it out of his pocket, his coat pocket. He opened it up, and there was a braid, a blonde of hair of a girl's braid. He held it up and he said, Creator of the universe, in the merit of this braid, listen to the Jewish people. And he started weeping and crying, and then he sounded the shofar. So it was a pretty weird thing. I mean, a braid of hair, what are you doing? So the Jewish people asked him, his congregation asked him, what happened with this braid? So he said, now starting the story, this is where I should have started this one. So he said, before the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, I saw that there was going to be trouble for the Jewish people. I saw that our merits were not sufficient, and that the Gentiles were planning a pogrom, or there was going to be some sort of a disaster, impending disaster. So my prayers didn't help. So I took one of my helpers, secretaries, and we walked through the streets. That's how I mistakenly began the story. We walked through the streets of Braditchev. I stopped in front of a door. I had a feeling. I stopped in front of the door, knocked on the door. Who came out? An old lady. She saw me standing there, said, "Oh, great rabbi, what?" And I said, "You have some sort of a merit, something that you did when you were in your life, some sort of a big merit that you've been keeping. I would like to have it." She said, "No, Rabbi, it was nothing, please." He said, "No, it's very important to me. I have to have it." So she came out and she brought a braid. She brought a little sack, and she took out a braid of hair, like a braid. She said, "Take this." She started crying. And the rabbi said, "Tell me, what was it? What is this braid?" And she said, I'm a bit embarrassed, but I'll tell you." Said, "When I was a young girl, my father and mother and we ran this little inn, and people would come, and my father would sell them, food and drink a little bit, and a little bit of liquor, vodka, and we had a place to give them a place to sleep, and that's how we made our money. But it ended up that there was a couple of years that were really, bad. It was bad weather, and people didn't come, and the Baron sent people to tell my father that he was foreclosing. He was going to kick them out. And my father pleaded, "Please give me just a little bit of more time." And he said, "You'll have to come and see me." But my father got sick. And my mother had to take care of him. So I went to the Baron myself. I was just a young girl. I was 15 years old. And I went to the Baron and I asked him if he would please give my father just an extension. I saw the Baron suddenly started looking at me in this strange way that I had never really experienced before. And he had this look of lust in his eyes. And he said, "How would you like to get married to me? Then I'll let your father have the whole inn." And I said, but I don't understand. I'm Jewish. I'm just a young girl. And she says, doesn't make any difference to me. Just to, and he said, no. I said, no, I don't want to. He said, if your father will get evicted from the thing, if you don't marry me, I said, I don't want to. And he got up. He said, okay, so at least give me a kiss, give me a hug. And I said, no. And I ran out, and he grabbed a hold of my braid. I had a long braid, and he grabbed a hold of the braid and he kissed it. And I ran out the door. I ran home, and I cut off the braid. I put it in. I told my father what had happened, and I said, we have to get out of here as fast as possible. He's going to foreclose, and that's what we did. That's what we did. My father loaded up all the possessions that he had, everything that was precious, and we ran to another city. It would have put my father into jail. Who knows what it was, and who knows what he would have done to me. So, but all the time I regretted that kiss that he gave to my that braid that I had, and I kept it around. I kept the braid around to remind me that God should forgive me for this. Rav Levi Yitzchak said, "Listen, the fact that you were willing to relinquish everything to maintain your Jewish purity is, and your father agreed, this braid is worth more than all the good deeds that I've done. And therefore, before Rosh Hashanah, I use this braid as a merit. See, God, what your Jewish people are. See what the real essence of them is. If they did sins, it's because they forgot this essence. They didn't contact their true essence of their soul. This is the essence of the Jewish soul. Self-sacrifice for the truth. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, God willing, I'll do the other, the Var Malchut.